My name's Theo Clinkard. I'm a dancer, mostly a dance maker, designer, teacher, mentor, living in Dartmoor, Devon. My practice, it spans those different roles, but if I think about a kind of common theme, maybe to do with my making, the first thing that comes to mind is something around hosting dancers, so not necessarily autobiography and portraiture, but the fact that I'm trying to bring the people out in the dancer. And that's something that always comes back as a theme for me. And then I would say, as a kind of designer of my own work, I think about making worlds, visual worlds, environments in which the dancer is free to make decisions. So they're often authoring their own movement world, but I try to set the conditions, the parameters or the scores that means that they're actually able to make great choices. So rather than the idea of choreography as a kind of control situation, it's something about making the best seedbed that they can be their best artist within the context. Another thing that's really kind of key in my work, I would say, is increasingly working with perception and attention. So that might be working with the senses or working more somatically, but something about how might the performer's moving body instruct the audience's moving body or talk to, communicate to directly. So that maybe if I think about work that might stimulate the eyes or the awe in me as an audience, or work that might be work on the intellectual realm, there's something for me about the immediacy of kind of empathy or mirror neurons, or trying to make work that's got a long memory. I think also, a key part of my work is working with younger dancers, and whether that's teaching context or mentoring. And I think there is something about encouraging this balance of like self-empowerment, self-responsibility, owning your dance. It feels a very different environment to when I trained. I was just thinking the other day about how this neutral body that receives choreography and acts as a vessel for the choreographer's voice for an audience, and thinking about that shift towards a practice-based working for dancers, and seeing if there's a meeting point between me as a maker and them as their ongoing dance interest and dialogue, so that I'm looking to work with people who consider themselves artists in their own right. And I think that shift is, for me, within the last 15 years, the dialogue around the dancer as artist authoring their career, as opposed to someone who is activated by dance when they're employed. What might be an ongoing thing for both maker and dancer, that means that we are thinking about the body and in dialogue with the world and how we understand it through the body, perhaps. Before I was making work, I was really advocating quite publicly for the recognition of the role of the dancer in their own right. I remember a piece of writing in The Guardian which literally spoke about dance as being a choreographer's instrument. And I wrote about 4 pages in the comment section about why that was problematic. This is only 2010, it wasn't that long ago. But I think it kick-started, or was already maybe in my mind, that there wasn't this recognition of that a dancer can be an artist outside of a choreographic or choreographer's context, or an employment context. So I think that in that time, there's been such a shift towards what is the voice of the dancer, how do they use it, where is it welcomed, how do you fight for it, how do you ensure that it's there, and how does that make better working conditions for everyone, and reframe the role of the maker being a respecting employer of other people. What does it mean to be in a kind of workforce in dance or in art making, so that there's a brighter future and one that I want to be part of. And it's nice to feel like a continuation of dancers who are looking to find that kind of place in the world. And I'm really a big champion for that and do what I can to support it. If I think back to when I was training, I became fixated on working with one big repertory company. And I think partly to do with my frame of reference, it was I will have made it if I get into that company. And I used to chant, I used to have a visualization. I was reading books around manifesting and stuff like that, because it was this is how I know that I've made it in the world, and actually didn't get the job. And it was around that time that I realized I wanted to have said that I was working there. It was something about a really external profile thing versus having any information about what the day-to-day would be like, how they ran the company, what the values were, and what my role or day-to-day might have been like. And I think, it's such a blessing in disguise, but it felt like a massive letdown. But actually then I learned to, do the research of ask around, how does that company function? Is it something I want to uphold? What do my days look like? Will I be happy? Is it a good match? Is it a good alignment? And getting more information. And I think for young dancers, especially like different countries, different contexts, such different value systems and different emphasis in work. So you might not find your place where you are, but if you went to a different country or managed to do workshops elsewhere, you might find that you're really suited to someone else's work, and that might be a different culture and a different kind of dance conversation that's happening there that fits you. I'm in a process at the moment of scrolling less, reading more, seeing work, being in conversation, and just trying to kind of really tune into like what nurtures me, and like on a really deep level what feels good and feels like I'm getting closer to, or remaining closer to, an artistic practice rather than the things that distract me from it. I'm quite tempted to get rid of my phone again. I went dumb phone once and I think I might do that again. Because it's like, well, how do we spend our time? What do we, with practice, that you get good at what you practice. So if I practice kind of like dispersing myself between lots of different other people's work and the comparison, all that kind of stuff, I could be spending that time much more wisely. So I feel like, yeah, my advice would be around like get politicized, see work, try to understand what's happening there beyond like, do you like it, do you not? Like what's going on, why does it function? And to be, in that sense, a critical viewer of the things you engage with. And yeah, there's a lovely Patti Smith quote I always go back to about kind of building a good name, and eventually that will become its own currency. So how can you build a good legacy and a name for yourself and invest in that and just trust the trajectory maybe more than how do I appear to be, what can I do next, a kind of ladder thinking, but like go for the long game, the body of work and the kind of slow burn, I suppose.